Hi, Simon.
Hey, Rachel.
Hey, thank you for joining us on the Black Ink podcast. But before we get into it, I know you've had an amazing career, both producer and presenter. Do you just want to give us a little run through of some of your highlights?
Okay, so some of my highlights, my CV, my job interview. So I started off writing TV listings for newspapers, and from there I worked briefly in lots of different roles on Today newspaper, which only old people will remember, and did a bit on The Sun, and I ended up as TV critic on the Daily Mirror for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. Then when Mirror Group set up Live TV, I went over to Live TV as a presenter and did various shows there. And then I became a sort of producer slash reporter for hire. So I used to report on the Saturday Night Lottery show, which I also ended up producing at one time. Oh, cool. And then since then, I've kind of just been sort of a bit of a producer for hire, still did a bit of presenting, did a bit of broadcasting. I sort of do TV reviews for Gabby Roslin and film and podcast reviews for her for BBC Radio London. So I'm one of those kind of freelancers, jobbing freelancer.
Doing everything.
Jerk of all trades, yeah.
I heard you were the head at scripted comedy at the BBC as well? Is that
well, I was one of the creative heads of comedy, and I sort of headed up Comedy North. So I kind of went to the BBC as a comedy producer. I really wanted to do scripted. I'd done a sort of broken comedy panel shows, but I really wanted to do sketch shows, and I really wanted to do sort of sitcom stuff like that. And I was lucky enough to go to the BBC as a producer and then get to creative head. But I kind of think when I was doing it, it's still, a lot of glass ceilings that I ended up pressing up against, but didn't quite manage to smash through, sadly. But made some really good friends, worked with some really talented people there.
I can only imagine your presence would have made a huge difference. Whether you crashed those ceilings or not, I'm sure you made the difference that you might not see, but I'm sure people came after you definitely felt the difference. So good on you.
Thank you very much.
No, it's okay. And you ran the online content for Shortlist magazine as well?
Yeah, so I did, after I left TV for a bit, around about 2012, because I wanted to do my own startup. I'd always had this idea of a kids review site where kids reviewed stuff. And so I set up a website called Kid Rated, which is still going. But if you know anything about doing your own business and startup, at some point, if you don't raise money, you have to go and get a proper job again. So I wanted to leave TV at that stage. So I went and sort of worked in the digital arena, and I was head of, as you say, head of video at Shortlist/Stylist, which I did for just under a year before going on to work at Yanga and Africa Media Works as their head of original content and stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a connection with West Africa?
No, not at all. And in fact, it was really funny. The person who asked me, really good friend of mine, was going to be doing it, a guy called Sam Delaney, the broadcaster and journalist. And I'd worked with him. I've worked with him off and on for 20 years. Love Sam. And he said, his production company had been asked to do some stuff for Africa Media Works in Yanga. And he said, it'd be great if you can help us out and come in. So I went in and said to them, they were like, oh, great, a black person. Because there's not a lot of us in telly. There's not a lot of that sort of, at that stature, who can sort of run a department. I mean, there are, but sort of we are thin on the ground.
Yes.
And they were like, a black person, an African channel, everything. I had to say, look, I'm adopted by white parents, I'm married to a white person, and I'm not from Africa. But hey, I'm your person. And you know something, of all the jobs I've done, I think that was the biggest learning curve, and working with young British black talent and bringing them through as researchers and APs and producers. Really, really, really humbling and really good fun. Really good.
Yeah, that must have been quite awesome. I mean, working in the industry, I know how far and few between we are, and kind of go through and build a career upon it. And a lot of people drop out because to a certain point, and you just can't deal with the racism, the banter, the blocking of your progression. And so I've got a lot of peers that kind of just like, I can't do this anymore, and then just start again somewhere else. So,
I mean, I really, the kids and sort of, I'm at the age now that anybody under 35 I get to call a kid. So the kids that I worked with there.
Right, black don't crack, it's cool.
The kids that I worked with there, you know, they really should, seeing how hard it was for them afterwards for, you know, for those reasons. And those kids made a lot of shows with me in a very short space of time. In a year, they were pushing sort of 250 shows they made. Wow. They made a hell of a lot of shows, really, really experienced. But, you know, it's tough. It's tough for young black kids in the media.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And, you know, I don't blame when things happen like sort of not enough, when people say BAFTA's so white and all the rest of it. It's not BAFTA's fault. They're only voting for the people that they can see in front of them. We just have to get more people, more cinematographers, more wardrobe, more just throughout the whole process. It's not just in front of camera, but yeah, great kids who I worked with there.
Oh, well, that's awesome. And with everything that's going on at the moment, there's a lot of companies trying to bring that one black person that they once had for an interview, or
is that what this is? Are you like redoing your demographic?
That's what's happening. It's like we got to tick that box, you know, for perception reasons. But that's for another show, I suppose. Do you have any social media handles that people can follow you?
Yes, they can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram at slondon UK. I'm on Radio London every other Sunday reviewing podcasts for her and films for her.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of doing another new film review show that I've kind of got under wraps, and I'm going to do a pilot of in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
And I'm currently head of video at The Nest, and The Nest is a new startup for founders and for entrepreneurs. And it's an app where it's kind of like masterclass for entrepreneurs. They can download the app and see lectures by inspiring entrepreneurs. And it's mainly aimed at the underrepresented people in sort of the entrepreneur ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because women get about 2% of VC money. Black women get about 0.2%, and black founders find it very difficult to raise money. So we're sort of aiming it at them.
That's awesome. God, you're really doing the most, aren't you? To the people. So as you know, Black Ink Cinema is about celebrating all things Black cinema. And we asked you to pick a film that you would like to talk about. And you picked one of my faves, the Spike Lee classic Inside Man.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
So really, really interesting, actually. Well, our mutual friend Adam, when he got in touch with me and said, you know, love to talk about Spike Lee. I know you love Spike Lee, and I do. I was showing you earlier. I was such a massive Spike Lee fan. You know what, that thing where you suddenly see a film and then you start reading about people. And so this is my person. You know, every time a film came out, I didn't just have to see the film. I had to get the book and the books of the script and how it was made.
Oh, you've got an amazing library there.
I went over to New York and I went to his 40 Acres and a Mule shop a couple of times. I used to have loads of sweatshirts, T-shirts with 40 Acres and a Mule and an ex-baseball cap. Sort of Spike Lee was my man. And once I was making a show in LA, only show I ever made, only out there for 3 months, not something I did all the time. Walked into a hotel and there's Spike Lee sat in the foyer, and I'm just like, Spike, I said, I'm from England and I'm doing a show about You're My Hero, and I got to speak to him for a couple of minutes, and it was
amazing.
Just amazing. So cut me and I bleed Spike Lee. So
I hope he was nice to you, because there's nothing worse than meeting your heroes and they're a bit of a dick.
He was lovely. The one thing he did do, though, I said, I've got T-shirts from 40 Acres and a Mule. And he said, wow, when did you get that? I closed that shop years ago. I was thinking, I thought my stuff was really cool. It's just really old. So when kind of you guys said, you know, Spike Lee, it could be a Spike Lee film, I thought, yeah, which one should I do? Should I do The Right Thing? Should I do Summer of Sam, Clockers? And I thought, no, Inside Man. I'm going to talk about Inside Man. And Inside Man does not really feel like a Spike Lee film.
I totally agree with you, yeah. A lot of people don't even know it's a Spike Lee film.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's it's a really, I think it's a really, really important film, and it is totally Spike Lee. Totally Spike Lee when you think about it. So he's got his De Niro to his Scorsese, Denzel Washington, who's made sort of 4 or 5 films with, is there as the cop, and he's cast Chiwetel Ejiofor, a young, well, at the time, young British actor, but it's a multicultural cast. It's a really mixed cast, and it doesn't have a message. It doesn't feel that it's got the sort of Spike Lee social commentary about it. And why it's so brilliant is you go, this is a brilliantly made film that could only be made by a really confident director, and he doesn't have to be pigeonholed. This is not a black film. This is a Spike Lee film, and it feels like it could be up there with a Scorsese film. It's brilliantly directed, and I think for me that was the moment when it was, give Spike Lee more great stories to tell. That's how I felt after watching it.
I totally agree with you, and I hate the fact that he hasn't had such another opportunity like that in terms of big budget, unlimited kind of access to a cast that you can just think, wow, you know, Christopher Plummer to Jodie Foster and then Denzel. That's crazy, you know. And it's his highest grossing film. And so you just kind of wonder, like, what, you know, give him the opportunity. It's really frustrating to kind of see that the man that he is, and he's still kind of struggling in the industry.
Yeah, so you kind of think as well. I mean, I watched it. I wanted to do my homework for you guys, so I watched it again the other day, and I watched it with the DVD commentary on, which I hadn't done for Spike Lee film for ages, and it's great. I highly recommend it. A lot of swearing in it, and a lot of laughs and everything else. But the story behind it is great. He went in to see Brian Grazer, who's the producing partner of Ron Howard, about another project, and unbeknownst to them, somebody had slipped him the script of Inside Man that had been knocking around for a while, and Ron Howard actually was going to direct it.
I heard that.
Decided to do Cinderella Man with Russell Howard instead. Sorry, not Russell Howard, that would be terrible. Russell Crowe instead. No offense to Russell Howard, but come on. Russell Howard would be good as a boxer. So Spike Lee, just as the meeting was finishing, said, I've seen the Inside Man script. I'd love to do that film. And I think I can get Denzel Washington to do it. And so as soon as he was able to cast it or bring a cast to it, it got greenlit and it got rushed through studio. And the next thing he knew, he was making this film. Now, the cast, which includes Christopher Plummer, Jodie Foster, Denzel Washington, and Willem Dafoe, as well as Clive Owen, shot on location in New York, down on Wall Street. They made it for $50 million. $50 million. It was unbelievable. Yeah. But he's working there with top names. Yeah. And with brilliant performances. A lot of the a lot of the scenes are improvised.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get that a little bit. Like, you get their personalities, but the execution is so sharp from them all. And you're just like, I think maybe that's why it feels so authentic. Yes. I don't know, they really immerse themselves in each character. Like, I really feel like Jodie is that, like, icy bitch. And it's nice because you don't usually see her like that. You know, she's a bit more tomboyish or laid back, but she was really clean and precise in Inside Man. And Christopher Plummer, oh my God, to play, like, you know, a horrible Nazi. It's just like someone's granddad, you know. It's like...
He's a man who ran away from the Nazis 50 years ago. He's become one. Interestingly, he says in the film that Jodie Foster, he said they'd always wanted to work together. And his brother was at Yale when Jodie Foster, remembered, she gave up acting for a bit to go back to college. And so he'd sort of known her through his brother for years. And when she said she wanted to do the film, she also said to him, and I want to be glamorous. She said, I'm always playing dowdy characters, so I want to be glamorous. So he's like, okay, cool. And so he jokes in it a lot. Look at Jodie, she's got her legs out. You never see Jodie Foster's legs. What great legs. And he said, he said, if you watch the scenes as they come up between her and Denzel Washington, I think they only have about 3-4 scenes together, but 2 of those are one-take scenes.
Oh, wow.
One-take scenes. And he's just said, you know, when he handed in his rushes, the people said, where's the coverage? And he said, I didn't need any. It's just one take, pushing the camera in slowly, and those two just hitting their lines and hitting their marks. And
that is one of my favourite scenes, when they're talking in front of the window and the camera's just kind of zooming in, and he's just so intense, and they're having a very, like, they're almost arguing, but so mellow, and you're just like, oh God, it's about to kick off in a minute. But like nothing actually happens, but it's a fantastic scene, and it just goes to show their professionalism. Like,
yes, definitely.
You know,
definitely. And if we talk about performances, interestingly, Denzel Washington, Spike wanted Denzel Washington to play the bank robber, the Clive Owen, but Denzel didn't want to do it because, and you obviously know this, go on.
Well, no, one of the things that I noticed and why I love The Inside Man is because it's all very role reversal. You know, you've got the two black cops taking down the white robbers. There's literally not one person of colour who's robbing the bank. And you've got two black males taking that. It was all very like, I was like, this story's great.
I hadn't thought of that. So Denzel Washington said, no, I don't want to play the robber because his face is covered for half the movie.
Oh, so okay. See, I didn't even...
Yeah. So Clive Owen, again, wasn't quite sure about taking the role because his face covered. But Spike Lee said, you know, just trust me. Trust me, I'll get a great performance out of you. And it won't matter. They will get to see you. And again, I love that story. When I found out about that, though I love the point you make as well, is that it's such a great film and it's such a great story that he doesn't need... Although there are little nuggets in there, he doesn't need to kind of make it a social injustice story, or it's not about the black guy taking down the white guy. It's not a payback film. It's not. No. Just very, very strong characters doing what they do best, whether that be rob banks, be old Nazis, be a fixer in Jodie Foster's case, be head of a SWAT team in the case of Willem Dafoe. You know, so it's just a great film. And I look at that film and go, you could give that film to a Scorsese, you could give it to a Frankenheimer, you could give it to a Tarantino even. All of them would make their version of that film because it's a great, great story. But Spike Lee's version is possibly the version that we don't really expect. It's so straight. It doesn't meander. There's no fat in there.
And like you said, like, it's not like his other kind of social political movies that he makes. So it's more mainstream and it kind of fits in a more linear narrative when it comes to ticking a box. However, like you said, he does have his little Easter eggs and his little nuggets of like, you know, just think about this and role reversal. And I think all of that was very much intentional. I know Denzel has spoken in the past about the roles that he plays and how he's very specific about it. So even though he's not making a song and dance about, you know, Black Lives Matter or whatever it might be, just by those two characters playing the roles that they did play, completely changed the narrative of the story. And also, I don't know if you'd have the same empathy or understanding if the robbers were black, because there's this real, like, you're on the robber's side, you kind of want, you know, you want them to get away, you want them to succeed in the heist, but because of how black people are portrayed in the media normally, I don't think you would have that initial, oh, we're kind of on your side and we want you to.
It's a really interesting way to look at it, though I might say it's so skillfully shot and the performances are so well-rounded and everything else that I could see Clive Owen, I could see them being reversed and I could see it still being a great film. It's an interesting point. He says throughout it, you know, he wanted to sort of remind everybody that we live in that it was shot and it was in a post 9/11 scenario. So he's kind of got that little bit of racism in there with the Sikh.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah. That was so good. Like, it was a subtle small bit, but it was so effective because you're just like, oh, you're just clicking the whole time.
When Denzel Washington is interrogating the Sikh guy afterwards, he ad-libs a line, I bet you can still get a cab. And apparently they all cracked up on set, and it cuts out, the laughter is cut out because Spike Lee was saying, yeah, black people still can't, loads of Middle Eastern drivers. This guy's moaning about the way he's been treated since 9/11, but Denzel Washington's warning him, reminding him, yeah, you can still get a cab though, unlike us black people. So he wants to remind us all it's a post 9/11 world. Really lovely little Easter eggs in there. When they ask for the pizzas for... Yes, you know what I'm going to say. When they ask for the pizzas for the hostages, it's from Sal's Famous Pizza.
Love that bit. And you know what? To be fair, Adam only pointed that out to me the other day because I hadn't actually noticed that. And you're watching the video, you're so engrossed in it. So when I watched it again the other day, I was like, yes, I see that. It's so cool.
I think it should be the law that if you're a director, you have to put in stuff for us geeks like that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
We need that stuff. We need that stuff. And he had a lot of kids, a lot of people that he cast in it played softball for his 40 Acres and a Mule team, were drivers. So some of the hostages were people who were in the fraternity but weren't necessarily actors. He loved The Wire. He thought The Wire, which was brilliant at the time, still is, which was very prolific at the time, was amazing. So he made sure he had some actors from The Wire. The thing I love about it as well is it keeps on referencing other heist movies or other bank robber hostage movies. So he talks about Serpico, the cop movie with Al Pacino, and he talks about Dog Day Afternoon, and he even casts two of the hostages, I think, were original hostages in Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which is a great little nugget. Yeah. So the little things like that make it really good. He's got a great script there, and he handles that script really well. And there's no fat in it. I love Spike Lee, as I say, but he does every so often. I'll watch one of his films and love it, and go, could have taken out a couple of scenes. He could trim. I
totally agree with you. There's so many movies like that. It's like we could have lost 20 minutes, guys. Come on, it was so unnecessary. But that's the one film I can wholeheartedly say every minute counts.
Definitely. He's also, a little bit of social kind of commentary that he puts in there. He had a games company make the violent game that the black kid is playing because he wanted to speak out about how he's against gangster rap and how it's brainwashing young black kids and young black men, and this whole idea of black on black violence. And again, it's not something that is massively rammed down your throat, but it speaks to me about that sort of essence of diversity. Would a white director put that in? Possibly not, almost certainly not. And we need lots of different voices telling lots of different stories, or the same story, but from a different perspective. Because what you tend to get, if you have the same people in the room all the time, is you tend to get their one shared experience. And I think that, once I listened to that on the DVD commentary last night, I was... Yeah, it's interesting. He's still kind of flexing his muscles, but not in a sledgehammer to a nut type way. It's cool.
And it was funny because that was going to lead me on to my next question, which is what's one of your favorite scenes? And for me, that's one of my favorite scenes because they're both sitting on a box of money, and he asked him to play the game and just see what he's playing. And it's so aggressive. It's so violent. It's terrible for a child to be playing something like that. Yeah. And you can just clearly see that he's trying to make a point, when Clive Owen says, I need to speak to your dad about this game or whatever. And also the kid is probably one of the few people in the hostage situation that doesn't see anything wrong with what the bank robbers are doing. He's like, you've got to get paid too. And that's because of the how he's been conditioned through this music and gangster rap and this violence, kind of understanding, no, I get you, it's fine, do what you got to do.
That's really true. Really true. I love I guess they're flash forwards, aren't they? Which is it feels weird saying that word, but the flash forwards to kind of the post hostage situation where the hostages are being interrogated, and he's shot that, a lot of it's shot in black and white. A lot of it is really stylized, so it's a lot of... it's like a grainy blue. Yes, grainy and bright lights. It's almost a little bit like, I think they used some sort of silver nitrate process for shooting some of Seven.
Oh, okay.
David Fincher's Seven, and it hints to a little bit like that. Not only does it look great, but a lot of those scenes are improvised, and they feel genuine. They feel really good. So I think I like those scenes. I also like it's really clever, as Willem Dafoe talks about how they'll go in and storm the building. They show how that would work and then why they shouldn't do it because of the hostages that they would shoot. But they show, as Willem Dafoe's sort of saying, this is what we could do. It's visualized. And on the DVD, it says, we shot this on the very last day of filming because it meant that we could blow up the set. So a lot of the interior of the bank is on sound stages, which is a great little geeky note for us again. But I've never really thought of Spike Lee again as an action director, but he handles those action scenes really well. And there's sort of 2 or 3 of those scenes as well. Yeah. I love the beginning where the police cars all come down and it's shot from very high and it's shot down. And also when the hostages come out, last scene, but on the DVD he says he was kind of inspired by all the bodies, the Confederate soldiers in Gone with the Wind. So you remember that all the hostages have to lie on the floor and the camera comes along and then comes up, and it's very much like after that battle where you see all those Confederate soldiers lying. Yeah. And so that scene, well, I guess those are shots, but the interrogation scenes and those shots make it really, really exciting, really interesting.
I love the interrogation scenes. One of my favorites is when Denzel and Chiwetel are like perving on the girl with the big boobs, and it just shows their chemistry, because even though it's awkward and no one wants to see Denzel doing all of that, but it just shows the kind of the subtleness that the skillfulness that they used in that scene, and it was uncomfortable to watch. And she's thinking, "Are you really doing this?" But she can kind of handle herself in that situation.
Yes,
but it was just so normal, and like these things happen, and you'll be sitting across someone on a tube and they're just like staring at your boobs, and it was just like, I think a lot of women could just be like, been there. That's one of my favorites.
What's interesting actually about that is, yes, it feels really out of character for Denzel, because he's there's that great joke by Chris Rock about black women getting angry with white girls for taking all our good black men. And he goes, we've only got 7. And after Denzel, it's a pretty big drop off. And so Denzel's on a pedestal. So to see him suddenly be a little bit creepy, it is. Kind of do that. But as we know, without spoiling it for people, boobs are important in that film.
Boobs are very important in that film.
So it's clever the way that he sort of got that in. And again, it's not gratuitous. You don't feel it's rounded off nicely.
Where do you see Inside Man sitting in the Denzel Spike Lee marriage collaboration?
Well, it's a good question.
It's a toughie, isn't it?
So He Got Game is a brilliant film, and I think that's one of Denzel's best performances, and again, very confidently directed by Spike. And so let's put that one over here.
Okay.
Surprisingly, I think I was kind of half expecting myself to say Malcolm X, and I didn't. Malcolm X it's a great film. It's a great biopic. Malcolm X was a great character with a lot of great stories around him as well. It's slightly overlong for me. And it's interesting talking to your colleague Adam about Malcolm X, and he says there's a grittiness there, but at some points it feels like a musical. The Lindy Hop scenes when Spike and he plays Shorty in it, doesn't he? And go into the dance halls. And then there are some of it feels very Ridley Scott American Gangster, I think, the way that it's shot. Then towards the end, as Malcolm X is kind of going through this transformation and he does the Hajj and goes to Mecca, that feels like another film in a way. It's sort of the tone of it feels different. But then at the end where he's got all the kids saying, I'm Malcolm X, and he gets Nelson Mandela in, I sort of feel it kind of feels like it's really important, and I know what he's trying to say. But the film should have ended 20 minutes earlier, and it just feels, now watching it, slightly mawkish. So, not mawkish, that feels really mean, but it just doesn't need to be in there. It's not that sort of film for me. So Malcolm X, I think, comes under He Got Game. Mm-hmm. Mo Better Blues is a great, just looking at it now, Mo Better Blues is a great, great film.
Yeah.
And a really good story. And it's, but I think Spike, again, casting himself, I don't think, I'm not saying that he's the Sofia Coppola of the, he's not the Sofia Coppola of Mo Better Blues, but it's colourful, it's great. I love the production design, I love the music. But no, so I'm going to say He Got Game, Malcolm X, Mo Better Blues, and I think I'm going to put Inside Man. I'm going to slip that at the top because it's just, it's great. It's Denzel giving Spike Lee the performances that he used to save for Tony Scott.
Yeah.
You
totally.
think of Crimson Tide, you think of Man on Fire.
Oh, Man on Fire. It's my heart.
Is it Pelham? Did they make Pelham 1, 2, 3 together? I think, I kind of feel he gets a really, really good, strong performance there out of Denzel Washington. So it's probably my favourite, yeah.
So if you were going to recommend a scene for someone to go and watch, to incite them into watching Inside Man if they haven't for some crazy reason, what scene would you direct them to?
The scene where Denzel goes into the bank to confront Clive Owen.
Yes.
And they end up tussling and they fall on the floor, and you think to yourself, what's going on here? Surely, why hasn't Clive Owen shot Denzel Washington? Him up the, in some ways, there's a bit of DNA from Michael Mann's Heat in Inside Man with I know it's a cliche, but hey,
that's one of my faves as well.
These two guys are the flip side of the same coin, and they're not, but they're both very good at what they do, and they have this emotional intelligence. And Denzel Washington comes out afterwards and said, "Why didn't he shoot me? Why didn't he shoot me?" And Clive Owen comes out of it and says, "You're a lot cleverer. You shouldn't be a but you're not. You shouldn't be a detective. You're a lot cleverer than you think." So I like that scene, and obviously one of the very few scenes that they get together because of the way the film is shot.
I remember watching that for the first time, and I was like, "Oh my God, something's going to happen, and it's all going to go wrong." And you kind of, it's so intense. And so you're just thinking, hold on, he just killed the other guy, so why isn't he killing him? So
and again, it all starts to make sense towards the end. And I think actually what's really interesting about that film, and I was trying to explain two films that I really like that have come out in the last couple of years. One is 1917.
Oh, fantastic.
So obviously the one-shot thing in 1917 is absolutely brilliant, but it's very rare that you watch a film and it just has one story, no subplot.
Yes.
The story is you've got to get from A to B, and the camera's going to follow you.
Very simple.
So, no subplot at all, which is kind of strange. And then the other one is Midsummer, which is sort of like the remake of The Wicker Man with Florence. Not a remake, it's kind of inspired by The Wicker Man, done by the director, can't remember his name, who did Hereditary.
Oh, God, that film was so intense.
Yes.
Jesus.
So Midsummer is very much like that. With Inside Man, there is a lot going on. There's a hell of a lot going on. The Christopher Plummer storyline, it's hinted at that Denzel could be sort of a bit of a dirty cop storyline. There's obviously the robbing that's going on, the heist that's going on, and to a lesser extent, his relationship with his girlfriend. I think the subplots make it a more intricate film than it lets on. Again, like I say, the DNA of Heat, if you think about De Niro's character, Neil McCallum, I think he's called, something like that, Neil, and just breaks his own rule by falling in love with the girl. And you get the feeling that Clive Owen is breaking his own rules by not dealing properly with Denzel Washington. So there's this sense of tension underneath about it, which I love. Yeah,
and it's because he likes him. Like he just got a feeling that he just likes him, and he's like, I'm gonna allow him. One of the scenes that I like, or probably recommend, is quite early on in the film when they're removing everyone's phones. And then the manager refuses to give his phone, and then he finds a phone and he calls it, and then it's like Kanye West Gold Digger plays. And I just found that so comical. Like, one, don't expect him to have that as the ringtone. And then two, he goes and, beats him up. That's one of the only casualties of the movie.
Yes.
Which is quite hilarious. But I just think that kind of sets the scene and the pace of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, really interesting. You're so right, because of course the Kanye West, as you say, Gold Digger comes in, and you're like, oh, I can breathe again, and you're like, and then he gets beaten up, and you're like, whoa, this is
maybe not. This is pretty serious. He means business.
Yeah, it's interesting as well that Terence Blanchard, who is a really long time Spike Lee collaborator, who's done all his music, does the music for the film, the signature trumpet bit from there. And so this isn't a film where Spike Lee has gone, I've hit the big time. I'm working with big time Hollywood producer Brian Grazer, so I'm going to sort of use new people, and this must be a big opportunity. He's so confident in what he does, and I like the idea that he stays loyal to the people who have worked on, She's Gonna Have It. And
that's one thing I have noticed about him, and in all his interviews and things that I've read, that he does keep a close-knit group of people that he keeps working with, and he feels a responsibility to ensure that they keep getting jobs, and, he puts them on these projects, because he kind of feels, or what I've heard him say, is that if he doesn't, then they won't get that opportunity. And it's such a heavy responsibility to have, because we're not talking a few, 10, 20 people, it's, hundreds.
Yeah.
So it's
heavy is the head that wears the crown.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I'm always happy to talk films anytime, any films. And if I don't know it, I'll go and look it up and sort of find out more stuff about it. But I love heist films. So if
you basically sound like me. I just did a review for Heat, which is one of my top favorite films. I mean, the cast is ridiculous, but that gun fighting scene in the road is probably the most deafening, excellent thing you'll ever see in your life. It's fantastic. And I just can't get enough of it. I watch that over and over again. So I love a good heist movie as well.
It's don't you feel for the guy who's breaking parole, who's the driver in that scene? You just want him to get away, he's
there are so many heartbreaking moments in that. I say in my review, it was all going so well until you wanted revenge. When he goes back to the hotel to kind of, it's like he could have got away if he hadn't gone back to the hotel.
Yes.
He could have got away.
Yeah.
And that's him again kind of breaking his own rules of not sticking to the plan and just, getting away. So
what do you think of sort of the, obviously the scene of De Niro and Pacino in the diner? Do you think it lives up to everything you want it to be?
It's not like my go-to scene in the movie, but I think it's iconic. It's it carries so much
Yes.
It uses so much energy. I could just feel like both of their energy just off the screen. And it's like, they don't really say that much either. They're kind of threatening each other as well. Like, I got to take you down. I'll put you down and stuff like that. But I think it's just who they are. It's why it's so iconic. It's like finally the two heavyweights coming together.
You know, it's Vito Corleone meets Michael Corleone, and that's all you're sort of thinking about. But also, I think two great actors at the height of their powers there, doing really well. And in fact, Denzel Washington, nothing left to prove. He's got his Oscar for Training Day. You know, he's got his Oscar for Glory. He's made some great films. He breezes through Inside Man. I think that's what Inside Man is. Inside Man is a film with actors turning in confident performances under the helm of a really confident director. Clive Owen definitely deserves to be there.
Yes.
And Clive Owen, I watch him in that, and I think he could have been a really good Bond. I think they really missed a trick, not with him.
I agree with you there. He kind of fits that old school James Bond as well, not the new kind of masculine one, but that kind of old school suave kind of.
It's been a great bridge between the sort of kind of throwback to Roger Moore that Pierce Brosnan was, and into the kind of hard, thuggish character that Daniel Craig plays it. I think Clive Owen would have straddled that quite well, because the first few Craig Bonds didn't have any jokes or sense of humour in there at all. The idea of Daniel Craig driving a blow-up gondola across St. Peter's, it's never going to happen. I think that's what I love about the film. The confidence of all the people making it oozes out, and there's nothing about it that it's not an anxious film. It gets where it wants to go to in the right time. And as I say, it's sort of said to me, give Spike Lee more mainstream great films to tell. I would hate for his legacy to be he was the man who made Black. I don't want him to be pigeonholed. I want him to have that body of work.
Totally. Both.
I would love to see more stories told through his perspective that don't feel sort of as though they're weighted down in race, because I think that showed that he is a really, really great director.
He's fantastic. And it upsets me sometimes that he doesn't get his recognition. I mean, Black Klansman was phenomenal. I really enjoyed that. A little bit too long, but a little bit too long. It's like we could have shut off a little bit, but I get it. You know, it was a fantastic movie. And I guess you and I can talk about Spike Lee and all the movies in the world. I feel like you're that sort of person that we could just go back to back and talk about all our favourite films. And I would definitely love to have you on again.
Brilliant. I would love to come on again. Enjoyed
our conversation. But I just want to thank you so much for coming on the Black Ink Cinema podcast.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time and wish you all the very best in everything that you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And so pleased to be interviewed by you. And great. So keep doing what you're doing and getting more of us on and doing the stuff. And
well, hopefully when we're back and up and running and we're able to put on the screenings, you'll come down and
I will. Definitely. Yeah. Okay.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Simon.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.